The stars looked different here. Hyunwoo pressed his hand against the viewing window of the diplomatic vessel and watched the throne world grow larger. It was a planet covered in silver cities that sparkled like someone had scattered diamonds across blue oceans. This was the heart of the Viren Empire, and somewhere down there, a queen waited to decide if humanity deserved to survive. Hyunwoo was 28 years old and terrified. Not of the aliens, exactly. He had spent 5 years studying 17 different alien languages and cultures. He loved learning how other species thought, how they saw the universe. What terrified him was failing. Earth needed this alliance. Without it, 3 different alien empires were ready to invade his homeworld. Humanity was too young, too weak, too scattered across just one solar system. They needed friends among the stars. Ambassador Nari stood beside him, checking her formal robes for the 10th time. She was 45 and had negotiated trade deals with 6 alien species, but even she looked nervous. "Remember," she said quietly, "the Viren have been traveling space for 3 million years. They've seen thousands of civilizations rise and fall. We need to show them we're different, that we're worth protecting." "No pressure," Hyunwoo muttered. Tae-hyun, his fellow linguist, laughed nervously behind them. Daesung, their military escort, just checked his ceremonial sword. It was purely decorative, but the Viren appreciated species who remembered their warrior traditions. Minji, the xenobiologist, was reviewing her notes about Viren physiology one last time. The ship landed in a courtyard made of some kind of crystal that sang softly under their feet. Hyunwoo's breath caught. Everything here was beautiful in a way that made his chest hurt. The architecture flowed like frozen music. Gardens floated in the air, held by technology that looked like magic. And the Viren themselves were stunning. They were tall, with skin that shimmered between silver and pale blue. Their eyes were large and completely silver, without pupils that humans could see. Delicate patterns glowed softly beneath their skin, like living tattoos that moved and changed. They wore robes that seemed to be made of light and shadow woven together. When they moved, it was like watching water flow. The Viren guides led them through halls that made Hyunwoo feel like he was walking through a dream. Everything was smooth curves and soft light. Music played from somewhere, but he couldn't see instruments. It took him a moment to realize the walls themselves were singing. Finally, they entered the throne room. It was vast, with a ceiling that showed the actual sky above, somehow brought inside. Hundreds of Viren stood in careful ranks, and at the center, on a throne that seemed carved from a single enormous crystal, sat Queen Lyra. Hyunwoo forgot to breathe. She was more beautiful than the others, but it wasn't just that. She radiated something he couldn't name. Power, maybe, or ancient wisdom, or both. Her bioluminescent patterns glowed brighter, moving across her skin in complex designs. She wore a crown that looked like captured starlight. Ambassador Nari stepped forward and began the formal greeting they had practiced for weeks. She spoke in perfect Viren, explaining Earth's situation, humanity's hopes, their desire for friendship with the ancient empire. Queen Lyra listened without expression. Her silver eyes moved across the human delegation, pausing briefly on each person. When those eyes reached Hyunwoo, he felt something strange in his chest, like a string being plucked inside his heart. The queen's bioluminescent patterns flickered for just a second. Then her gaze moved on, and the moment passed. Hyunwoo wondered if he had imagined it. The formal reception lasted 2 hours. Various Viren officials spoke about trade possibilities, cultural exchange programs, and defensive pacts. The queen said little, letting her advisors handle most of the discussion. When she did speak, her voice was like music, deep and resonant. The translator in Hyunwoo's ear converted her words to Korean, but he wished he could hear the original meaning beneath. Finally, Ambassador Nari presented their gifts. It was traditional among the Viren to exchange gifts during first contact. Earth had sent carefully chosen items representing human achievement: a piece of the first spacecraft that reached Mars, a book of poetry from 12 different Earth cultures, a sample of wheat that had grown in the International Space Station, and a crystal containing humanity's first message to the stars. Hyunwoo stepped forward with his contribution. He had argued for weeks to include this. In his hands, he held a small device containing something simple: human music. Not just any music, but a collection he had curated himself. Everything from ancient drums to classical symphonies to modern electronic compositions. But he had included something else, something that made this gift unique. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steadier than he felt, "music is mathematics made emotional. It's patterns that speak to something deeper than logic." He activated the device, and it projected holographic equations showing the mathematical structures underlying each piece of music. "We humans don't just create beauty, we feel it. These patterns show how emotion and logic can be the same thing, expressed differently." For the first time, Queen Lyra leaned forward, her silver eyes fixed on the floating equations and the music that played softly through the throne room. It was a piece Hyunwoo particularly loved, a Korean traditional melody played on a modern synthesizer, blending old and new. The equations showed how the ancient rhythms created emotional responses through pure mathematical relationships. The Queen's bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in time with the music. Around the room, other Virens stirred. Some of their patterns began matching the rhythm too. Hyunwoo realized, amazed, that he had accidentally discovered something. The Viren didn't just hear music, they physically resonated with it. Queen Lyra stood. The music stopped. The room fell completely silent. She walked down from her throne, her movements liquid and graceful. She stopped directly in front of Hyunwoo. He was tall for a human, but she was taller. Her silver eyes looked down at him, and again he felt that strange pull in his chest. "Interesting?" she said softly. Her voice without the translator was like chimes in the wind. Then she turned and walked back to her throne. "The delegation from Earth will stay in the Eastern Palace. We will consider their petition." That was all. The reception was over. Guides came to lead them away. But as Hyunwoo followed the others out, he glanced back once. Queen Lyra was staring at the device he had given her, still showing its mathematical music equations. Her expression was unreadable, but her bioluminescent patterns were flickering rapidly, like a heartbeat racing. 3 days passed on the throne world, and Hyunwoo was going crazy. Not from boredom. The Viren had given them beautiful rooms in a palace that overlooked gardens where the flowers sang at dawn. They had access to libraries containing millions of years of accumulated knowledge. They could walk freely through public spaces and observe Viren daily life. The problem wasn't what he could do. The problem was what was happening in the meetings. Every morning, Ambassador Nari met with various Viren officials to discuss Earth's petition. Hyunwoo attended as cultural liaison. His job was to explain human customs, answer questions about Earth societies, and help bridge the gap between human and Viren thinking. It should have been the most important work of his life, except Queen Lyra acted like he didn't exist. The first time it happened, Hyunwoo thought it was coincidence. The Queen had asked a question about human family structures. Hyunwoo raised his hand to answer. He had prepared for exactly this kind of question. But before he could speak, the Queen turned to Taehyun instead, asking him to respond. The second time, Hyunwoo actually stood up to present information about human art and music. He had brought examples, had prepared a whole presentation. Queen Lyra listened to his first 3 sentences, then interrupted politely and asked if Minji could explain human biology instead. The meeting moved on to a completely different topic. By the third day, it was impossible to ignore. When Hyunwoo entered a room where the queen was present, her eyes would slide past him like he was invisible. When he spoke, she directed her responses to whoever was standing next to him. Once, during a discussion about human conflict resolution, Hyunwoo offered an insight about mediation practices. The queen had literally turned her back to him and asked Dae-sung to continue the discussion instead. "I don't understand," Hyunwoo said that evening in their shared quarters. The 5 humans sat around a low table, drinking tea that the Viren had provided. It tasted like starlight and honey. Did I offend her somehow? Is there some cultural taboo I triggered? Taehyun shook his head. I've reviewed every interaction. You followed proper protocol perfectly. Better than the rest of us, actually. Maybe she just doesn't like you, Dae-sung said bluntly. He was practical like that. Nari frowned into her tea. That's what worries me. We need the Viren to like us. All of us. If the queen has taken offense to Hyunwoo, it could damage our entire petition. She looked at him with concern. Maybe you should skip tomorrow's meeting. No. Hyunwoo said it more sharply than he intended. Sorry, but no, I can't hide. That would be worse, wouldn't it? Like admitting I did something wrong. Minji had been quiet, but now she spoke up. I talked to one of the Viren medical staff today. They're curious about human physiology, so we had a good conversation. I asked carefully about the queen, whether she seemed stressed or unwell. And? Nari leaned forward. The medical attendant said Queen Lyra has been acting strangely since we arrived, not sleeping well. Her bioluminescent patterns have been irregular. The attendant seemed concerned, but also amused, which I found odd. Amused? Hyunwoo felt a flash of anger. She's amused that the queen dislikes me? Not exactly. The attendant said, and I quote, Her Majesty has never avoided anyone so carefully before. Then she wouldn't explain what that meant. Hyunwoo lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his room. It showed a projection of the night sky, real stars in their actual positions. He found Earth's sun. Just a small point of light from here. So far away. Billions of people depending on this mission to succeed, and somehow he had ruined it without even understanding how. He started researching obsessively. The Viren had given them access to cultural databases. Hyunwoo spent hours reading about Viren social customs, psychological patterns, and historical interactions with other species. There had to be an answer. Some explanation for why Queen Lyra was treating him this way. The 4th day, there was a cultural ceremony in the palace gardens. The Viren practiced something called meditation hours, where they would sit in beautiful places and simply exist quietly. It was meant to maintain mental balance. The human delegation was invited to observe or participate. Hyunwoo found a spot near a fountain that sang as water flowed through crystal tubes. He tried to meditate, but his mind kept spinning. What had he done wrong? Was there something in the music gift? Some hidden insult in the mathematical equations? He had been so proud of that presentation. You are troubled. The voice came from beside him. Hyunwoo opened his eyes to find a Viren standing nearby. This one was older, their bioluminescent patterns slower and deeper in color. They wore robes marked with symbols that indicated high status. I am, Hyunwoo admitted. I've offended Queen Lyra somehow, but I don't understand how. The Viren settled gracefully onto a bench near him. I am Kelmar, advisor to the Queen for 3 centuries, and you have not offended her. Then why won't she acknowledge me? She acts like I'm not there. Kelmar was quiet for a long moment, watching the water flow through the singing fountain. Among my people, there is a saying, the brightest stars are the ones we turn away from, lest they blind us. Hyunwoo blinked. I don't understand. No, you wouldn't. Not yet. Kelmar stood, preparing to leave. But consider this, young human. The Queen speaks to your colleagues with ease. She engages them in debate and discussion, yet with you, she is silent. Does this seem like simple dislike to you? Then what is it? Kelmar smiled, an expression that looked strange on Viren features but seemed genuine. That is a question only the Queen can answer. But I will tell you this. In my 3 centuries serving her, I have never seen Her Majesty work so hard to ignore someone. One might wonder what would happen if she stopped trying. The advisor walked away, leaving Hyunwoo more confused than before. He returned to the database that night, but this time he searched for different information, not about insults or social mistakes, about Viren emotions, about what it meant when they avoided things. He found references to something called resonance, but the files were restricted. Cultural information marked for Viren eyes only. That only made him more curious. What were they hiding? The 5th day brought another council meeting. Hyunwoo entered determined to get Queen Lyra to acknowledge him, even if just to tell him what he had done wrong. But when he walked into the chamber, the Queen's patterns flickered rapidly for just a moment. Then she stood abruptly. "This council is postponed," she announced. "We will reconvene tomorrow." She left through a side door before anyone could respond. Hyunwoo caught Kelmar's eye. The old advisor gave him that strange smile again and followed the Queen out. Nari was furious. 3 weeks, she said as they walked back to their quarters. We have 3 weeks before the Krell hegemony's fleet reaches Earth's defensive perimeter. If the Viran don't agree to help us before then, billions of people will die. And the Queen just walked out of a council meeting. Maybe she's ill, Minji suggested. Or maybe she's decided we're not worth her time, Daesung said grimly. Hyunwoo said nothing. He kept thinking about Kelmar's words. The brightest stars are the ones we turn away from. What did that mean? And why did the Queen's bioluminescent patterns always flicker when he entered a room? Not with anger or disgust. It looked more like how a human heart might race, like nervousness or excitement or fear. That night, Hyunwoo couldn't sleep. He stood at his window, looking out over the Silver City, wondering if he would ever understand these beautiful, ancient, impossibly complicated aliens. And somewhere in the palace, he didn't know that Queen Lyra also stood at her window, looking out at the same stars, fighting a battle inside herself that had nothing to do with politics or alliances, everything to do with a feeling she had sworn she would never let herself feel again. The attack came on the 6th day, during the morning meditation hour. Hyunwoo was in the library, still searching for information about Viren emotional patterns. The first sign of trouble was a sound like thunder, except it came from above and kept getting louder. Then the palace shook. Emergency alarms began singing through the crystal walls. The sound was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a harmony that made Hyunwoo's bones vibrate. Viren rushed past in organized patterns, moving toward protected areas. A guard approached the human delegation. "You must come to the diplomatic shelter immediately," the guard said in accented but clear Korean. "The Krell hegemony has launched an attack." The Krell, one of the 3 empires that wanted to conquer Earth. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. "Why here? Why the Viren?" "It appears to be a miscalculation. They believed we would be unprepared. They were wrong." The guard gestured urgently. "Please, this way." Nari and Taehyun followed immediately. Daesung grabbed his ceremonial sword, which suddenly didn't seem so ceremonial. Minji gathered her research materials, always thinking like a scientist even in crisis. But Hyunwoo hesitated. Through a window, he could see smoke rising from one of the outer districts. The Krell ships were visible in the sky, dark shapes against the blue. "Hyunwoo, let's go!" Nari shouted. He started to follow, then heard something, a sound that cut through the alarms. Crying. A child crying. He turned back, trying to locate the source. There, A public colonnade that connected two wings of the palace had partially collapsed. Crystal pillars lay shattered across the walkway, and somewhere in that wreckage, someone was trapped. "I hear someone," Hyunwoo said. "Someone's trapped." The guards' patterns flickered with concern. "The military will conduct rescue sweeps. You must shelter now." But Hyunwoo was already running toward the collapsed colonnade. Behind him, he heard Daesung curse and Minji say something about human foolishness. Then he heard their footsteps following him. That made him feel less alone, at least. The colonnade was a mess of broken crystal and twisted metal. The Viren construction was beautiful but not designed for weapons fire. A Krell shot had struck one of the main supports, bringing down half the structure. Hyunwoo climbed carefully over the debris, following the sound of crying. "Hello?" he called out. "Can you hear me? I'm here to help." The crying paused. Then a small voice responded in Viren. Hyunwoo's translator converted it. "I'm stuck. It hurts." Minji appeared beside him, her medical scanner already out. "Life signs. 30 meters ahead, under that collapsed section. It's a juvenile Viren, injured but alive." Daesung was studying the wreckage with a soldier's eye. "This isn't stable. If we move the wrong piece, the whole thing could come down." "Then we move the right pieces," Hyunwoo said. He pushed forward, squeezing through gaps in the debris. His jacket tore on sharp crystal edges. His hands started bleeding from a dozen small cuts. He didn't care. It took 20 minutes to reach the child. She was small, maybe equivalent to a human 10-year-old, with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed weakly with pain and fear. A large section of crystal wall had pinned her legs. Her silver eyes went wide when she saw Hyunwoo. "You're the alien," she whispered. "The human from Earth." "I am," Hyunwoo said, kneeling beside her. "And I'm going to get you out. What's your name?" "Sina." "Okay, Sina. I'm Hyunwoo. My friends are here too. We're going to lift this wall off you, but I need you to be very brave. It might hurt more before it hurts less." Minji was already injecting the child with something from her medical kit. "Viren physiology is similar enough. This should help with the pain." She looked at Hyunwoo. "We need to lift that section at least 30 centimeters, and we need to do it without bringing down the rest." Daesung had found a piece of metal beam. "Use this as a lever. Hyunwoo, you're stronger than you look. Think you can lift while I stabilize?" Yes. Hyunwoo didn't know if that was true, but he said it anyway. Taehyun had arrived with 2 Viren rescue workers. Together, they positioned themselves around the trapped section. On Daesung's count, they lifted. Hyunwoo felt his muscles scream. The crystal wall was incredibly heavy. His hands were slippery with blood. His back felt like it might break. But he thought about Earth, about how humanity was always outmatched, always weaker than the enemies they faced, and how they won anyway by refusing to give up. He lifted harder. The wall rose. Minji pulled Sina free. The moment the child was clear, they dropped the wall. It crashed down, and the whole structure groaned ominously. More debris began to fall. "Run!" Daesung shouted. They ran. Hyunwoo carried Sina, cradling her against his chest while dodging falling crystal and twisting metal. His lungs burned. His legs felt like they might collapse. Behind them, the colonnade finished collapsing with a sound like 1,000 breaking windows. They burst out into an open courtyard just as the last section came down. Hyunwoo fell to his knees, still holding Sina. The little Viren wrapped her arms around his neck. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Medical teams arrived, taking Sina gently from Hyunwoo's arms. He watched them carry her away, making sure she was really safe. Only then did he notice his hands. They were a mess of cuts and blood. His whole body was shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. But he was smiling. He couldn't help it. They had saved her. Minji was checking the other survivors they had helped escape. About a dozen Viran civilians had been trapped in that section. The rescue workers were efficient, treating injuries, cataloging who needed further care. Around them, the sounds of battle were fading. The Krell attack had been brief. The Viran military had responded with overwhelming force. Hyunwoo felt someone watching him. He looked up and saw Queen Lyra standing at the edge of the courtyard. She must have come to check on her people. Her bioluminescent patterns were moving rapidly, flickering with emotions he couldn't read. She was staring at him, specifically at his bleeding hands and torn clothes and the smile on his face. Their eyes met across the courtyard. For the first time since that initial reception, she truly looked at him. Not through him or past him, at him. And the expression on her face was something Hyunwoo had never seen before. Wonder mixed with pain, mixed with something that might have been longing. Then Kelmar appeared at the Queen's side, speaking urgently. Lyra blinked, and the moment shattered. She turned and walked away quickly, her robes flowing behind her. But Hyunwoo noticed that her bioluminescent patterns were still flickering wildly, even as she disappeared into the palace. That night, after Minji had bandaged his hands and scolded him for being reckless, Hyunwoo found a message waiting in his quarters. It was displayed in floating Viran script that his translator converted. Report to the Queen's Observatory at midnight. Come alone. It was the first direct communication Queen Lyra had sent him. Hyunwoo stared at the message for a long time, his heart beating fast. He looked at his bandaged hands. He thought about Sina's small arms around his neck. He remembered the expression on the Queen's face as she watched him, that mixture of emotions he couldn't name. Something was about to change. He could feel it like electricity in the air before a storm. Whatever happened in that observatory, nothing would be the same afterward. Hyunwoo cleaned himself up as best he could, changed into fresh clothes, and waited for midnight. His hands still hurt, his body ached from the rescue, but none of that mattered compared to the question that had been haunting him for 6 days. Why did Queen Lyra avoid him so carefully, and what would happen when she finally stopped? The observatory was at the highest point of the palace, a dome of transparent crystal that showed the stars with perfect clarity. Hyunwoo climbed the spiral staircase alone, his footsteps echoing softly. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He had no idea what to expect. Queen Lyra stood at the center of the observatory, surrounded by holographic star maps that floated in the air around her. Each point of light represented a star system, and colored lines showed trade routes, territorial boundaries, and political alliances. It was beautiful and overwhelming, a map of the entire known galaxy hanging in the darkness. The Queen turned when he entered. In the dim light of the stars, her bioluminescent patterns glowed more brightly. They were moving in complex designs across her skin, faster than Hyunwoo had ever seen. She looked nervous. Could ancient alien queens even be nervous? Apparently, yes. "You came," she said quietly. Her voice, without the translator, sounded like wind chimes and distant music. The translator in his ear converted the meaning, but he wished he could understand the original sounds. "You asked me to," Hyunwoo replied. He stayed near the entrance, uncertain. "Your Majesty, if I've offended you in some way, please tell me. I've been trying to understand. Whatever I did wrong, I want to fix it." Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh, sad and tired. "You did nothing wrong. That is perhaps the problem." She gestured to the star maps. "Do you know what you're looking at?" Hyunwoo stepped closer, studying the holographic display. "The galaxy? Trade routes, political territories." He found a small yellow marker. "That's Earth. Yes, your world. So young. Your species has been using fire for perhaps 500,000 years. You've had civilization for 10,000. You've been traveling in space for barely a century." She waved her hand, and the map shifted, focusing on a different region. My people have been exploring the stars for 3 million years. We were ancient when your ancestors were still learning to make stone tools. I know, Hyunwoo said softly. That's why we need your help. We're children compared to you. No. Lyra's patterns flared brightly. That's not what I mean. I'm not explaining this well. She took a breath, which was interesting because Hyunwoo wasn't sure if Viren needed to breathe the same way humans did. Maybe it was just a gesture of emotion. Let me tell you about something we call resonance. She manipulated the hologram, bringing up what looked like medical or psychological diagrams. My people experience emotions differently than yours. We feel them, yes, but there's something else. Something that happens rarely, but when it does, it changes everything. We call it resonance. Hyunwoo moved closer, trying to understand the diagrams. They showed Viren neural patterns, bioluminescent signals, and something else he couldn't identify. What is it exactly? Imagine two strings on a musical instrument, tuned to the same note. When you pluck one, the other vibrates in sympathy. That's resonance in physics. For my people, there's a psychological version. When we meet another being, sometimes our consciousness begins to resonate with theirs. Our emotions start to synchronize. We feel echoes of what they feel. We become linked. Like telepathy? Not quite. We don't read thoughts. But we feel emotional states, joy, pain, fear, love. And once resonance begins, it cannot be stopped. It's permanent. Two beings bound together across any distance for the rest of their lives. Hyunwoo felt his breath catch. That sounds beautiful. It is. And it's terrible. Lyra's patterns dimmed. Because resonance doesn't care about logic or compatibility or circumstances. It simply happens. Two consciousnesses that are compatible, that vibrate at similar frequencies, will begin to resonate. And there's nothing either party can do to stop it. She turned to face him fully. In the starlight, she looked incredibly beautiful and incredibly sad. From the moment you presented your gift about human music, explaining how emotion and mathematics could be the same thing expressed differently, I felt the beginning of resonance. Your mind, your way of seeing the universe, it matched something in me. Like that string being plucked. Hyunwoo's mouth went dry. I don't understand. If this resonance is natural, if it's beautiful, why have you been avoiding me? Because of time. Lyra gestured at the star maps again. My people live for approximately 1,000 Earth years. You humans live for perhaps 80 or 90 if you're lucky. Do you understand what that means? He did. Suddenly, terribly, he understood completely. You'd outlive me by 9 centuries. Yes. If I allow this resonance to complete, if I let myself feel what I'm already beginning to feel, then I will love you, and I will lose you. And I will spend 900 years feeling the echo of your absence through the bond. Her voice cracked slightly. I have watched friends die. I have outlived 3 advisors. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, but I have never let myself resonate with someone who lived such a brief time. The pain would be unbearable. Hyunwoo stood frozen, trying to process what she was telling him. This impossibly beautiful, impossibly ancient queen was avoiding him not because she disliked him, but because she was trying not to love him. Because loving him would mean losing him. Because in the time scale of her life, he was barely a heartbeat. So you ignored me, he said slowly. You tried to pretend I didn't exist, hoping the resonance would fade. Yes, but it doesn't fade. The more I tried not to notice you, the more aware of you I became. Every time you entered a room, my patterns would react. Every time you spoke, I had to force myself not to listen. It was agony. Then why tell me now? Why bring me here tonight? Lyra looked away, toward the stars. Because today I watched you risk your life for my people, for a child you didn't know, of a species that wasn't your own. I watched you smile while your hands bled, happy simply because you had helped someone. I felt your joy through the resonance bond that was already forming, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in 3 centuries of life." She turned back to him, and her silver eyes were gleaming with something that might have been tears. "I realized that avoiding you wasn't working. The resonance was completing whether I wanted it to or not. So I had a choice. I could continue pretending you don't exist, making us both miserable for the short time you're here. Or I could accept what's happening and face the pain that will come later." Hyunwoo took a step toward her. His bandaged hands were shaking. "You said the resonance can't be stopped, so it's going to happen anyway?" "Yes. Already, I can feel echoes of your emotions. Right now, you're feeling overwhelmed and confused and something else, something warm." Her patterns flickered. "Hope, perhaps." "I am," Hyunwoo admitted. He took another step closer. "Your Majesty, I'm 28 years old. By your standards, I'm barely more than a child. I don't know anything about ruling empires or navigating galactic politics. But I know about music and mathematics and patterns. I know that the most beautiful things in the universe are often the ones that don't last long." He held up his bandaged hands. "Humans live short lives. We know everything we love will be temporary. Our families, our friends, our own lives, all of it ends. So we learn to love things anyway. We learn to find meaning in temporary beauty. Maybe that's why I could explain music to you in a way that resonated. Because we humans, we're experts at loving things that won't last." Lyra was very still. "Are you saying you want this? This bond that will end in pain?" "I'm saying I don't know yet. I'm saying I'm terrified. I'm saying I came here to save my species, and somehow I'm standing in an observatory being told that an alien queen is trying not to fall in love with me." Hyunwoo laughed, slightly hysterical. "This wasn't in any of my training." That actually made Lyra smile. It was small and sad, but real. "Nor mine." She moved closer, until they were standing just a meter apart. "The resonance is already forming. Soon we'll both feel it clearly. I wanted to explain before that happened. I wanted you to understand why I've been so cruel, ignoring you. You weren't cruel. You were afraid." "Yes, I am very afraid." Her patterns pulsed slowly. "But I'm also tired of fighting what I feel. So I'm telling you, Hyunwoo of Earth, that over the next days, we will become linked. You'll start feeling echoes of my emotions. I'll feel yours, and then we'll both have to decide what to do about it." Hyunwoo wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, to make some gesture of comfort, but he wasn't sure if that was appropriate. They stood in the starlight, 2 beings from impossibly different worlds, bound together by something neither of them had chosen. "Thank you," he finally said, "for telling me. For being honest. You deserved honesty." Lyra turned back to the star maps. "You should go now. We both need time to think about what comes next." She paused. "And Hyunwoo? What you did today, saving those people, that was very human, very brave and very foolish and very beautiful." He smiled. "That's us, brave and foolish." As he walked toward the stairs, Lyra's voice stopped him one last time. "The saying among my people about temporary beauty. The most precious flowers are the ones that bloom for only a single day. But knowing they'll fade doesn't make them less beautiful. Sometimes it makes them more so." Hyunwoo descended the stairs with his mind spinning. Somewhere above, a queen stood alone among the stars, feeling the echo of his emotions through a bond she couldn't prevent. And he realized he was feeling something too, a warmth that wasn't quite his own, a sadness mixed with hope. Her emotions bleeding across the distance between them. The resonance had begun. The resonance grew stronger each day. At first, it was just occasional flashes of emotion that didn't quite belong to Hyunwoo. He'd be reading in the library and suddenly feel a wave of sadness. He'd be eating breakfast and experience a moment of joy that seemed to come from nowhere. It took him 2 days to realize these weren't his feelings. They were hers. Queen Lyra's emotions, bleeding through the bond between them. By the 3rd day after their meeting in the observatory, he could identify her emotional state almost constantly. She was usually calm and controlled, but underneath there was a current of worry and something warmer, something that felt like sunlight on his skin. When he concentrated, he could sense her presence in the palace, like a bright star he could navigate by. It should have been terrifying. It was intimate in a way Hyunwoo had never experienced. But instead, it felt right, natural, like discovering a sense he never knew he had. He saw her now, at official meetings. She no longer avoided looking at him. Instead, their eyes would meet across council chambers and something would pass between them. Understanding, recognition, the knowledge that they were feeling echoes of each other's hearts. But they didn't speak privately again. There were too many watching eyes, too many complications. The Viren court had begun to notice the Queen's changed behavior. Whispers spread through the palace like ripples on water, and not all the whispers were kind. Kelmar found Hyunwoo in the garden on the 8th day. The old advisor sat beside him on a bench overlooking the singing fountains. "You've become the subject of court gossip," Kelmar said without preamble. "I've noticed." Hyunwoo had caught several Viren courtiers staring at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to disapproval. "Do you understand what you're doing? What this resonance means for Her Majesty?" "I think so." Hyunwoo watched water flow through crystal tubes, creating harmonies. "She'll be linked to me until I die, which by her standards will be very soon." "Precisely, and many in the court see this as a weakness. A queen bound emotionally to a being who will live less than 1/10 of her expected lifespan. They fear it will cloud her judgment, make her vulnerable." Kelmar's bioluminescent patterns pulsed slowly. "Some are already suggesting she's unfit to rule." Hyunwoo felt anger flare in his chest, but underneath it, he felt something else. Lyra's emotions. She was feeling defensive and hurt, and fiercely determined. The resonance let him know she was aware of the court gossip, and it pained her, but she wasn't backing down. "What do you think?" Hyunwoo asked Kelmar. "I think the Queen hasn't been this alive in 2 centuries. I think resonance, despite its pain, is a gift. And I think these short-lived humans understand something about living that we long-lived species have forgotten." Kelmar stood. "But my opinion doesn't matter. What matters is the political reality. If the court believes the Queen is compromised, they may move against Earth's petition out of spite. They'll claim she's biased, that her judgment about humanity is clouded by personal attachment." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. "So my relationship with her, even though we didn't choose it, could doom Earth's chances for protection?" "Possibly. Unless humanity proves itself worthy through other means." That night, Ambassador Nari confronted Hyunwoo in their quarters. The other humans had clearly been talking about him. Taehyun looked sympathetic. Minji seemed fascinated from a scientific perspective. Daesung just looked worried. "There are rumors," Nari said carefully, "about you and the Queen. Something about an emotional bond." Hyunwoo had been expecting this. He explained resonance as best he could. Described how it wasn't a choice, how it just happened when 2 compatible consciousnesses met. His friends listened with varying degrees of understanding. "So you're falling in love with her," Nari said when he finished. "I don't know. Maybe? It's hard to tell where my emotions end and hers begin." Hyunwoo ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I didn't plan this." "Neither of us did." "I know." Nari sat beside him. "But Hyunwoo, we came here for humanity's survival. 3 predator empires are circling Earth. Without Viren protection, billions of people will die. Can you honestly say this bond with the Queen won't influence her decision? That she won't choose to help Earth just because of her feelings for you? That's what her court is saying too. Because it's a valid concern. If Earth gets protection because an alien queen has personal feelings for one human, is that really an alliance? Or is it just a gift that will vanish when you die? Nari's voice was gentle but firm. I care about you, and I'm sympathetic to what you're experiencing. But don't let personal feelings compromise the mission. Hyunwoo wanted to argue, wanted to say it wasn't like that. But he felt Lyra through the bond, and he knew Nari was right to worry. The Queen's feelings for him were affecting her judgment. He could feel her wanting to help Earth, wanting to protect his people, because they were his people. The political situation worsened over the following days. News came that the Krell were massing ships near Earth's defensive perimeter. The human colonies on Mars and Europa were evacuating. Earth itself was preparing for siege. They had maybe 2 weeks before the invasion began. The Viren Council met to debate Earth's petition. Hyunwoo attended, feeling the weight of billions of lives pressing down on him. The debate was heated. Some counselors argued that humanity had shown promise, that saving Viren civilians during the Krell attack demonstrated worthy character. Others claimed humanity was too primitive, too violent, too unstable to deserve protection. And several counselors pointed out that the Queen's judgment was clearly compromised. She has resonated with a human, one counselor said coldly. How can we trust her evaluation of their species when she is emotionally entangled? Queen Lyra's patterns flared with anger. Hyunwoo felt it through the bond like heat against his skin, but she kept her voice level. I have ruled for 3 centuries. I have guided this empire through wars and peace, through alliances and betrayals. My judgment is sound. Then prove it, the counselor challenged. If humanity deserves protection, let it be for their merit, not your personal feelings. What makes them special? What do they offer the galaxy that justifies the resources we'd spend protecting them? The question hung in the air. Hyunwoo felt Lyra's uncertainty. She didn't have a good answer, because the truth was humanity didn't offer much. They were technologically primitive. They had no rare resources. They controlled only one star system. By galactic standards, they were insignificant, except for one thing. Hyunwoo thought about his conversation with Lyra in the observatory, about temporary beauty, about how humans loved things they knew wouldn't last. Maybe that was humanity's gift. He stood up. Everyone turned to look at him. May I speak? Lyra nodded slowly. He could feel her curiosity through the bond, and her fear. Fear that he would say something that made things worse. You asked what makes humanity special, Hyunwoo said. His voice shook slightly, but he pushed forward. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest. We don't have technology that would amaze you. But we have something else. We have perspective. He gestured to the Viren counselors. You live for 1,000 years. The Alari live for 5,000. The ancient Thorians existed for 10 million years before their sun died. You've all seen empires rise and fall. You've watched stars born and stars die. You've seen so much that I think maybe you've forgotten what it's like to know that everything is temporary. Humans live maybe 80 years. We're born, we love, we die, all in the blink of an eye by your standards. And because we know our time is limited, we treasure it. We fight for every moment. We create art and music and stories because we know they might be all that outlasts us. We love our families and friends desperately because we know we'll lose them. We defend our world with everything we have because it's the only world we'll ever see. Hyunwoo felt tears on his face, but didn't wipe them away. That's what humanity offers the galaxy. The reminder that life means more when you know it will end, that love is more precious when it's temporary, that courage means more when you're afraid, We're not asking for protection because we're powerful. We're asking because we're worth protecting. Because in a galaxy of ancient, immortal empires, someone should remember what it's like to be young and mortal and desperately, fiercely alive. The council chamber was silent. Hyunwoo sat down, his heart pounding. Through the bond, he felt Lyra's emotions wash over him. Pride, sadness, love. Definitely love now, clear and unmistakable. But he also felt her conflict. Because his speech had only made her feelings for him more obvious, and it had raised a question that the entire council was now thinking. If humanity's gift was living intensely because they knew life was short, what happened when an immortal queen fell in love with one of them? Would she learn to treasure temporary beauty, or would she be destroyed by it? The council adjourned without a decision. As everyone filed out, Lyra caught Hyunwoo's eye. Through the bond, he felt her message as clearly as words. Meet me tonight. We need to talk about what happens next, because the Krell fleet was coming. Earth's time was running out. And two beings caught in a resonance bond they never asked for had to decide, was love worth the pain it would bring? And could that love save a world, or doom it? They met again in the observatory, under stars that looked the same but felt different now. Hyunwoo could sense Lyra's presence before he even entered the room. The resonance had grown so strong that he always knew where she was, what she was feeling. Right now, she felt torn apart. She stood looking at a holographic display of Earth. Ships marked in red surrounded the planet. The Krell invasion fleet. Hundreds of vessels, enough firepower to turn Earth's cities to ash. And Earth's defense forces, marked in blue, looked pitifully small by comparison. 10 days, Lyra said, without turning around. In 10 days, they'll attack. Your military advisors estimate Earth will fall within a week after that. Hyunwoo stood beside her, watching the tactical display. I know, we've been getting updates. They're evacuating children to underground shelters, preparing for siege warfare in the major cities. My family is in Seoul. They're fortifying the old subway tunnels. He felt her pain at those words. Through the bond, she felt his fear for his family. His mother, his 2 younger sisters, his nephew who was only 5 years old. They were real to her now, not abstract concepts. She could feel how much he loved them, and that made the threat to Earth personal. The council is still divided, Lyra said. Half want to grant Earth protection. Half believe you're too primitive, too risky, and everyone questions whether my judgment is compromised. Is it? Hyunwoo asked quietly. She finally turned to face him. Her bioluminescent patterns were moving rapidly, showing distress. Yes, completely. I can't think about Earth objectively anymore. I feel your fear for your world. I feel your love for your people. It's all mixed with my own emotions until I can't separate them. She moved closer. I want to send the full Viren fleet to Earth. I want to destroy every Krell ship. Not because it's politically wise, but because I can't bear the thought of you feeling the pain of losing your world. Then don't, Hyunwoo said. Don't let the bond influence your decision. It's too late for that. Don't you understand? The resonance is complete now. I feel everything you feel. When you're happy, I feel joy. When you're afraid, I feel terror. And when I imagine you dying, when I imagine Earth burning and you with it, I feel like my heart is being torn apart. Her voice cracked. How am I supposed to make a rational political decision about your species when loving you has become the center of my existence? Hyunwoo felt her anguish through the bond, and it mixed with his own feelings until he couldn't tell which emotions belonged to whom. Maybe that's the point, he said slowly. Maybe the resonance is showing you something important. What? That political calculations don't matter as much as we think they do. That in the end, what matters is whether you can live with yourself. Whether you can look at your reflection and not hate what you see. He took her hands. They were cool and smooth, so different from human hands, but they fit perfectly in his. If you let Earth fall because you're afraid of seeming biased, could you live with that? Could you feel me die through the bond and not regret that you had the power to prevent it? Lyra closed her silver eyes. No, I couldn't. But that's exactly the problem. I'm making decisions based on personal attachment, not strategic wisdom. Who says strategic wisdom is always right? Who says personal attachment makes you weak? Hyunwoo felt frustrated and desperate, and he knew she could feel it too. Maybe your court is wrong. Maybe feeling connected to someone, caring about their fate, that's not a weakness. That's what makes decisions meaningful. They stood in silence for a long moment, hands clasped, sharing emotions through a bond neither had asked for. Finally, Lyra spoke again. There might be a way, a compromise that satisfies the Council and helps Earth. What? She pulled up a new display. It showed Earth's defensive perimeter and various tactical scenarios. The Council won't commit the Viren fleet based on my personal feelings. But if humanity demonstrates its worth in battle, if you show the courage and determination you spoke about in the council chamber, that might sway the undecided councilors. Hyunwoo felt cold. You want us to fight alone? To prove ourselves? Not alone. Not entirely. I can send a small support fleet. Enough to make a difference, but not enough to decide the battle. The outcome has to depend on human courage and ingenuity. Lyra's patterns dimmed. I hate this plan. I hate asking you to risk everything on a gamble, but it's the only way to get the Council to approve full protection. So we have to bleed to prove we're worth saving. Yes. She sounded miserable. And I'll feel every moment of your fear and pain through the bond. I'll know if you're winning or losing. I'll know when your people are dying. It will be agony. Hyunwoo thought about Earth, about his family and soul, about billions of humans who had no idea their fate depended on a decision being made in an alien palace light years away. He thought about human history, about all the times humanity had faced impossible odds. They usually lost, but they always fought. Okay, he said, but I have a condition. What? I go back. I join Earth's defense fleet. I fight with my people. Lyra's patterns flared bright with alarm. No, absolutely not. You're a linguist, not a soldier. You'd be killed. Maybe. But I'm also the human who resonated with a Viren queen. I'm a symbol now, whether I want to be or not. If I'm here, safe in the palace, while Earth fights for survival, what does that say? How can I ask my people to fight when I'm not willing to stand with them? He felt her terror through the bond. The thought of him in danger was almost unbearable to her. But he also felt when she realized he was right. If humanity was supposed to demonstrate its courage, their representative couldn't hide behind alien protection. I'll die, Lyra whispered. If you die, part of me will die with you. That's how resonance works. I'll feel your death as if it's my own. I know, and I'm sorry. But this is what being human means. We don't choose safety over what's right. We can't. Hyunwoo pulled her closer. You said you wanted to understand humanity, to really know what makes us special. This is it. This moment right here. Choosing to face danger even though we're terrified. Choosing to fight even though we might lose. I hate it, she said, and he felt her emotions like a storm. Fear and anger and love and desperation all mixed together. I hate that I found you. I hate that I fell in love with you. I hate that you're going to leave and possibly die and there's nothing I can do to stop it. You could stop it. You could send the full Viren fleet right now, save Earth without conditions, and doom any real alliance, because the Council would never forgive me. They'd see it as weakness, as a queen who couldn't separate personal feelings from political necessity. They'd undermine me at every turn. Earth might survive, but the protection would be fragile, dependent entirely on my personal reign. The moment I'm gone, the alliance would crumble. Hyunwoo understood. She was thinking centuries ahead, trying to secure not just Earth's immediate survival, but its long-term place in the galaxy. It was logical, wise even, and it required him to risk everything. "Then we do this your way," he said. "I go back to Earth. We fight with the support fleet you can provide. And we show your council that humanity is worth the investment. And if you lose, if Earth falls, then at least we'll have fought. At least we'll have shown who we are." He managed a weak smile. "Besides, humans are good at impossible situations. It's kind of our thing." The next days were a blur of preparation. Lyra arranged for a fast ship to take Hyunwoo and his delegation back to Earth. She sent 3 Viren cruisers as support, along with shields and medical supplies. It wasn't enough to guarantee victory, but it was enough to give Earth a chance. Ambassador Nari argued that Hyunwoo should stay, that he was too valuable as a diplomatic link to risk in combat. But Daesung understood. "He has to go," the soldier said. "For morale, if nothing else. The human who made an alien queen fall in love with him returning to fight for Earth. That's a story. That's hope." Minji just hugged him. "Don't die," she said. "Some of us want to study this resonance bond more." The night before departure, Hyunwoo stood one last time in the observatory with Lyra. The bond between them was so strong now that they barely needed words. He felt her love and her terror. She felt his determination and his fear. "When this is over," she said, "when Earth survives and my council approves full protection, what happens to us?" "I don't know," Hyunwoo admitted. "We'll still have the problem of time. You'll still outlive me by centuries." "I've been thinking about that. About what you said. About temporary beauty being more precious because it doesn't last." Her patterns pulsed slowly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe a few decades of happiness with you is worth the pain that comes after. Maybe I should stop being afraid of loss and start appreciating what we have. That's very human thinking. Perhaps you're corrupting me." She almost smiled. Then her expression turned serious. "Hyunwoo, if you die in this battle, I will feel it. The bond will tear something in me that can't be repaired. But I want you to know, even if it ends that way, even if I spend the next 900 years mourning you, I don't regret the resonance. I don't regret loving you." He kissed her then. It was clumsy because their species were different, their faces shaped differently. But it didn't matter. Through the bond, she felt what he felt. Love and gratitude and desperate hope that he would survive to see her again. "I'll come back," he promised. "Somehow, I'll come back to you." "You can't promise that." "I just did. That's another human thing. Making promises we might not be able to keep, just because we need to believe we can." The next morning, Hyunwoo boarded the ship with the other humans. As they lifted off from the throne world, he looked back at the silver planet growing smaller. Through the bond, he felt Lyra standing in the observatory, watching his ship disappear into the stars. Her pain was almost unbearable, but underneath it, he felt something else. Pride. She was proud of him for choosing to fight, and through their bond, she would be with him every step of the way. The Krell fleet waited at Earth, and humanity, as always, prepared to fight impossible odds. Because that's what humans did. That's what made them special. That's what made them worth loving, even when love meant pain. The Krell fleet looked like a dark cloud hanging over Earth. Hundreds of warships, their hulls scarred from countless battles, arranged in attack formations that had destroyed a dozen worlds. Hyunwoo saw them through the viewport of the human destroyer he'd been assigned to, and his stomach twisted with fear. Through the resonance bond, he felt Lyra's matching terror. She was light years away on the throne world, but she might as well have been standing beside him. She felt everything he felt. Every spike of adrenaline, every moment of doubt. He tried to send her courage through the bond, but he wasn't sure it worked that way. Earth's defense fleet was assembled. 200 ships pulled from every colony and station humanity controlled. They were outmatched 3-1. The 3 Viren cruisers Lyra had sent hung at the edge of the formation, silver and graceful among humanity's crude metal vessels. They would help, but this battle would be won or lost by human courage. Admiral Kim's voice crackled over the fleet communications. She was 70 years old and had fought in the Mars Independence War 40 years ago. All ships, this is command. The Krell will attack in approximately 1 hour. I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Many of us won't survive this day. She paused. But we're fighting for our home. For every person on Earth who's ever looked up at the stars and dreamed. For every child who deserves a future. We don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because surrender isn't who we are. Earth stands. Humanity stands. Now let's show these bastards why we're worth the damn trouble. A ragged cheer went through the fleet communications. Hyunwoo felt pride swell in his chest. These were his people. Short-lived and stubborn and absolutely refusing to give up. Beside him, a young pilot named Ara checked her weapons systems for the 10th time. She was 19, fresh from the academy, and completely terrified, but her hands were steady. "You really think that alien queen is watching?" she asked Hyunwoo. "I know she is. She feels everything I feel." "Then feel brave. Give her something good to feel." Hyunwoo tried. But it was hard to feel brave when the Krell fleet began moving toward Earth, weapons charging. Their ships were built for destruction. No elegance, no beauty. Just efficient killing machines. The battle began. Krell fighters swarmed forward like angry insects. Human interceptors rose to meet them. Space lit up with weapons fire, explosions, and the terrible silence of ships dying in vacuum. Hyunwoo's destroyer fired its main cannons at a Krell frigate, scoring hits along its hull. But return fire hammered their shields, making the whole ship shudder. Through the bond, Hyunwoo felt Lyra's agony. She was experiencing the battle through him, feeling his fear as explosions rocked the ship, feeling his desperation as he watched human vessels fall. He tried to shield her from the worst of it, but the resonance didn't work that way. She felt everything. Daesung's voice came over their squad channel. He was on a different ship leading a boarding action against a damaged Krell cruiser. "For Earth!" he shouted, and Hyunwoo heard weapons fire in the background. Daesung had chosen to fight as a soldier, not a diplomat. He was probably going to die, and he sounded almost happy about it. That was human, too. Finding joy in the fight itself. Minji was on one of the medical frigates, frantically treating wounded as they arrived. Through emergency channels, Hyunwoo heard her voice, calm and professional, even as she worked in a ship that was taking fire. She was broadcasting humanity's history and culture on open channels, sending everything Earth had ever created out to the galaxy. A final testament in case they lost. The Viren cruisers were devastating. Their weapons carved through Krell ships like burning light through paper. But there were only 3 of them, and they couldn't be everywhere. The human fleet was being pushed back toward Earth's orbit. Ships fell one by one, buying time with their lives. Hyunwoo's destroyer took a direct hit. The shield failed. Hull breaches opened on decks 3 and 4. Ara fought to keep the ship stable while emergency crews sealed the breaches. Hyunwoo helped pull wounded crew to safety, his hands remembering the rescue of Sina on the throne world. He felt blood on his fingers and smoke in his lungs and absolute certainty that he was going to die. Through the bond, Lyra screamed. He felt it like a knife in his mind. She was watching through his eyes, feeling through his heart, and she couldn't bear it. Somewhere on the throne world, the queen of an ancient empire was breaking apart because a human she loved was dying light years away. Then something changed. Hyunwoo felt it through the bond. Lyra's emotions shifted from anguish to determination to something blazing and fierce. He didn't understand what was happening, but suddenly he felt her love wrap around him like armor. Not protection from death, but the absolute certainty that he mattered, that his life meant something, that she saw him and loved him and would carry that love even after he was gone. It gave him strength. Hyunwoo helped seal the last breach, helped get the destroyer's weapons back online. Ara managed to maneuver them into position for one last attack run. If they were dying, they'd die fighting. That's what humans did. But then new ships appeared. Lots of them. Hyunwoo's instruments went crazy as massive energy signatures lit up the tactical display. He thought it was more Krell reinforcements, and his heart sank. But the IFF transponders read differently. These ships were Viren, not 3 cruisers, not a token support fleet, the entire Viren armada. Hundreds of ships, each one a masterpiece of ancient technology and devastating firepower. They jumped into Earth's orbit in perfect formation, and the space around Earth suddenly blazed with silver light. Admiral Kim's voice cracked with disbelief. "All human ships, hold position. The Viren have arrived in force. I repeat, full Viren battle fleet entering engagement zone." The Krell fleet hesitated. They'd been winning. They'd been about to crush Earth's defenses. But facing the full might of an empire that had ruled the stars for 3 million years, that was suicide. The Krell commander made the only logical choice. They retreated. Fast. Their fleet broke formation and jumped to faster-than-light travel, abandoning the battle. Earth was saved. The human fleet, battered and bleeding, hung in orbit around their homeworld. Half their ships were damaged. A quarter were completely destroyed. Thousands of humans had died. But Earth stood. Humanity survived. Through the bond, Hyunwoo felt what Lyra had done. He felt the echo of her standing before the Viren Council. He felt her emotions as she spoke, and he knew without being told what she had said. On the throne world, Queen Lyra had stood before her entire court. The council chamber was full, every advisor and counselor and noble present. Her bioluminescent patterns blazed brighter than anyone had ever seen them, showing emotions that Viren usually kept hidden. "I have made my decision," Lyra announced. "The full Viren fleet will defend Earth." The council erupted in protest. The same voices that had argued against her, the same concerns about her compromised judgment, the same accusations that she was acting on personal feelings rather than political wisdom. Lyra let them shout. Then she raised her hand, and silence fell. When she spoke, her voice carried through the chamber with absolute authority. "You are correct. My judgment is compromised. I am bonded through resonance to a human, and I feel his emotions as my own. Right now, I feel his terror as he fights for his world. I feel his pain as his ship takes damage. I feel his love for his people and his desperate hope that they'll survive." She moved through the council chamber, her robes flowing. "And you know what else I feel? I feel what it's like to be truly alive, to care about something so deeply that loss becomes possible, to love something temporary and precious and worth fighting for." Her patterns pulsed with each word. "For 3 centuries, I have ruled wisely, carefully. I've made political calculations and strategic decisions. I've avoided emotional attachments because they complicate things. I've lived a long, careful, safe existence, and I've forgotten what it's like to feel anything deeply." She stopped in the center of the chamber. Humanity lives brief, passionate lives. They know everything they love will end, and they love anyway. They fight anyway. They create beauty and art and meaning anyway, not despite their mortality, but because of it. That's what they offer the galaxy, the reminder that meaning comes not from living forever, but from living intensely. Lyra looked at each counselor in turn. "I am bonded to Hyunwoo of Earth. I will outlive him by 9 centuries. His death will tear something in me that will never heal. And I don't care, because knowing him, loving him, feeling what he feels as he fights for his world, it's worth the pain. It's worth everything. So yes, my judgment is compromised. I'm making this decision based partly on personal attachment. But it's also the right decision. Humanity has shown courage. They've shown creativity and compassion and stubborn refusal to give up. They saved Viren civilians during the Krell attack. They created art that resonates with our very biology. They're fighting impossible odds right now because they believe their world is worth defending. She turned to face the council leader directly. I'm sending the fleet because I can't bear to feel Hyunwoo die through the bond. But I'm also sending it because humanity deserves protection. Because in a galaxy of ancient empires who've forgotten how to feel, these young upstarts are teaching us to remember. And if that's not worth defending, then what is? Kelmar had stood, his patterns showing approval. The Queen has spoken. I stand with her decision. One by one, other counselors stood. Not all of them. Some remained seated, disapproving, but enough stood to make it official. The Viren fleet would defend Earth. Back in Earth's orbit, Hyunwoo felt all of this through the bond. He felt Lyra's courage and conviction. He felt her love burning like a star. And he felt her relief now, knowing he had survived. The battle was over. Her fleet had arrived in time. His communicator chimed, a direct transmission from the lead Viren battleship. When he accepted it, Lyra's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted and radiant at the same time. "You're alive," she said, and her voice cracked with emotion. "I am. Thanks to you. Thanks to your entire fleet." Hyunwoo was crying and didn't care who saw. "You came, even though it was politically risky, even though it proved your court right about your judgment being compromised. I decided they could be right. I decided that some things are worth being compromised for." She smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Hyunwoo had ever seen. "Besides, you were right. Temporary beauty is more precious because it doesn't last. I'd rather have a few decades with you and spend 9 centuries remembering than avoid the pain and spend 9 centuries wondering what I missed." "That's very human of you. Perhaps you're a bad influence." Her smile faded slightly. "The Council has approved full protection for Earth. You'll have Viren military support, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. Your world is safe now. Because you fought for us, because you were worth fighting for, and because watching you fight showed me something I'd forgotten, that the things we love most are always the things we might lose. And we love them anyway." In the following weeks, Earth celebrated. The Krell had been driven off. The Viren had declared humanity under their protection. The other Predator empires decided Earth wasn't worth the trouble of fighting the ancient Viren Empire. Hyunwoo returned to the throne world. Lyra was waiting in the observatory, surrounded by stars. When he entered, she turned, and he felt her joy through the bond like sunshine. "You came back," she said. "I promised I would. And humans keep our promises when we can." She moved to him, and they embraced. Two beings from impossibly different worlds, bound by a resonance that would last until he died. They both knew the pain that was coming. In a few decades, Hyunwoo would age and fade and eventually die. Lyra would feel his death like her own. Then she'd live for 900 more years, carrying the memory of him. Was it worth it? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Loving someone you'll lose? Lyra looked up at the stars. Through the bond, she felt his joy at being alive in this moment, his gratitude for every day they'd have together, his very human certainty that temporary things could still be beautiful. Maybe even more beautiful because they didn't last. "Ask me in 1,000 years, she said, taking his hand, "but I think the answer will be yes." On Earth, humanity looked up at the stars with new hope. They had friends now, protectors. They'd been accepted into the galactic community not because they were powerful, but because they'd shown courage. Because they'd reminded an ancient empire what it meant to feel deeply, to love fiercely, to treasure each moment as precious. And on the throne world, a queen who'd lived 3 centuries stood with a human who might live 8 more decades. Time would separate them eventually. Loss was inevitable. But right now, in this moment, they were together. They were alive. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.